Hello, Anacapa.
Well, hello, Ventura. Hi, Evie. How are you today?
I'm good, you?
Good. We're doing great here. I'm underwater at Anacapa Island with my cameraman, Josh, and some support divers. I'm Ranger Dave. My name is Dave Began. I'm a park ranger here at Channel Islands National Park. And we have several audiences, or a few audiences with us today. And so, Evie, I'd like to welcome the audience in Ventura at our Park Visitor Center Auditorium. I understand we have some kids who are part of the Ventura Sail and Kayak Club, and also some campers from my gym and other people watching us today. So let me hear a big shout out hello from all of you in Ventura. And we also have an island on the audience today, and our volunteer moderator, Kathleen. So let me hear a big shout out from all of you just above me here on Anacapa Island. Hello. And I know we have many viewers watching us today also, streaming live over the internet. Thank you to our tech partners, Ventura County Office of Education and Explore.org for making this all possible for us to reach all of you who aren't able to interact with us, speak with us, but who can also watch this program. But for those of you on Anacapa and in Ventura, you're not just watching, you get to be a part of Channel Islands Live today. And as I mentioned, we're underwater at Anacapa Island. We're still in the national park, though, because Channel Islands National Park is comprised of 5 islands, Anacapa being one of them, and also the waters that surround them. These waters are also part of Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, and the specific spot we're diving in today has been a marine reserve, a protected area for over 30 years. And so we're actually diving in a forest. And Evie, I'm going to start by asking a question from all of the people watching in Ventura. How's the weather over there in Ventura right now? And I know what it's like in Anacapa because I was just on the surface. But underwater here, in the middle of the day, on one of the longest days of the year, it is dark and cloudy. It's almost like a storm underwater. Yes, there's weather underwater as well. And there's a lot of surge here today, and it's stirred up the water. And that, in a way, is a good thing because what you see between Josh and I, some of it is bottom sediment that has stirred up, but some of it is also nutrient-rich plankton, both tiny little animals and plants and algae that make up part of the web of life down here. And actually there are over 1,000 different kinds of living things here in this forest that we're diving in today that I'm getting wrapped up into. But let's go to Ventura one more time. I think you guys know what kind of forest I'm diving in, so go ahead and shout out the name of this underwater forest. Yeah. So this is a forest, just like forests on land, but this forest is well adapted to this underwater environment. It actually is, the kelp itself, I should say, is the primary structure of the forest, just like trees on land. But kelp, instead of having a rigid trunk like a tree on land would have, has adapted to the underwater environment by having flexible, pliable stipes instead of a trunk. And so these allow kelp to flow back and forth with the motion of the ocean. Also, because the nutrients in the ocean are floating all around us, they're not contained solely in the, excuse me one second, I'm kind of bound up in the kelp myself. But the nutrients are all around us. They're not just tied up in the sand or the soil like on land. So kelp can actually, through its leaf-like blades, absorb nutrients right out of the water column, not just from the blades, but the stipes as well. It also has these gas-filled bladders that help to propel or buoy the kelp up to the surface. And my cameraman, Josh, is going to aim the camera up, and let's have everybody, both on Anacapa and in Ventura, just go ahead and shout out, what is it that the kelp is reaching for on the surface? Sunlight, yeah. And even on a cloudy day down here, we can still see that there's sunlight shining through. And kelp takes that sunlight and it, through the process of photosynthesis, converts it into energy. And that's a big factor in why all of this life can exist down here. And so we're not only looking at kelp today, but we're going to see if we can find some of the animals that call the kelp forest home and rely on kelp for survival. And we'll see what some of the threats are to the kelp forest, even though it is a protected area. Some simple things that we can all do to help protect this environment. And in the end, we'll find out one reason, just one of many, why this algae, this giant algae, is so important to all of us for our very existence. So why don't we drop down to the bottom with all this surge here and see if we can, with the help of our support divers, find some of the things that rely on the kelp forest for home. And as I look around here, I can see one thing that pops right out at me. It's something that's changed recently, and it is the algae that's between Josh and I right now. This is not kelp. This is a different kind of algae called sargassum, and it's actually an invasive species that, because this year we had warmer water, it actually thrives in the warmer water, and it overtook a lot of the area down here. The kelp actually died back. But now the waters are cooling again as the El Nino weather event fades, and kelp is starting to grow back. And Kathleen, let's see if anyone on the island here has any idea how fast giant kelp can grow in a day.
2 feet. They all said it.
2 feet, yeah. That's a fairly well-known fact for people who are familiar with the kelp forest. It's one of the fastest-growing organisms on the planet. And so once the water cools, which it has now, it's about in the low 60s right now, then the kelp will really start to come back. The sargassum will still be an invasive problem here, a change in the ecosystem, but hopefully the kelp will start to outcompete it as we get back into our normal weather pattern. Now, I'm going to have one of our support divers, Dan, come in, and Josh will show you some shots of the kelp, has brought in a couple of animals that do rely on the kelp for survival. And so, Josh, we can zoom in on these, and everybody just go ahead and shout out, what is this that I'm holding in my hand? What are these two animals?
Sea urchins!
And so sea urchins are, get knocked around here a little bit, are grazers, and they actually eat kelp. They'll catch bits of drifting kelp. This is sargassum, but a kelp blade would do the same thing. And they will use their flexible spines to bring the kelp around to their mouth in the center of the animal. And they're an important example of how things, even in a protected area like this is a marine reserve we're diving in, can get out of balance. This is a red urchin, and this is a purple urchin. And a red urchin, when it gets larger, is actually a commercially viable food that people eat. It's called uni in sushi bars. They can get much larger than this. A purple urchin doesn't get too much larger than the one I'm holding. And if too many red urchins are removed from the kelp forest, purple urchins fill the void. And they actually will devastate the kelp forest by attacking the structure of the kelp called a holdfast that anchors it to the rock. And so just a simple thing like fishing out too much of the red urchin population can change the entire dynamic of the kelp forest. Now I'm going to give these urchins back to our support diver Dan so that he can put them back into a nice safe place, because we don't see that many urchins down here anymore like we used to before El Nino came and changed the water temperature. So as the kelp disappeared when the water temperature changed, the urchins that eat the kelp also had a population drop. And so, again, we're hoping to see urchin populations rebound as the kelp itself rebounds as well. So, we've seen one example of an animal that relies on the kelp forest for life. I'm going to actually bring Diver Dan back, and we're going to show you another example. And go ahead and shout out. I think everybody knows what I'm holding here. What animal is this? Crabs. This in particular is called a sheep crab, and it uses the kelp forest not only as a place to live where its food comes from, it's a scavenger and a predator. It'll eat things that it finds on the bottom, but it also, you can see, camouflages in very well with the natural and even the invasive algae and plants found here. And so it uses the kelp forest for protection from things that might want to eat it, things like us. So let me go ahead and let's set this crab down, and it's probably going to get lost pretty quickly in the algae and the rocks on the bottom, but that's what it is designed to do. So kelp is not just food for a place for this animal to find food, but it's a place for it to be safe as well. Now, crabs like this can get quite large, especially in a reserve area like this where they're allowed to grow without being hunted by people. And the larger an animal gets in the ocean, most animals in the ocean, I should say, the more young they produce. So the older and larger this crab gets, the more offspring it'll produce. And so having areas like this where these animals are protected not only helps to have crabs in this kelp forest, but in kelp forests all up and down the coast, because they do move around. There are times we don't really see crabs very often, and then there are times like right now where they're all over the place down here. And here's another animal of the kelp forest, a sheephead. Let's see if this fish swims back in towards us. And it's an animal that is also a predator that eats sea urchins. Here we go. And sheephead are interesting fish because they start life as females, all of them do, and as they grow, some of them turn into males. So it's a little bit different under the water, a little different life cycle for them. And if too many of the large males get hunted, then the females will turn into males at a smaller size, and it reduces the overall size of the population, which again has an effect on their reproduction, on how many sheephead there are. So fishing is one of those threats to the kelp forest. If it's done responsibly, there's a lot of food down here, but if species are overfished, it can have an effect overall. Now, that's one of the threats to the kelp forest. Let's go to the island. Kathleen, does anyone here have any idea as to what another threat might be to the kelp forest?
They said pollution.
Pollution, yeah. So pollution is certainly something that we're not immune to. We are here offshore and in a national park and national marine sanctuary, and so the waters here tend to be cleaner than closer to the mainland. But there are plastics everywhere in the ocean. There's not a place you can go where there's not some effect by pollution and human activities. And so, Evie, let's go to Ventura, and let's ask the kids, does anyone know what you can do? What's a simple thing you can do to help keep trash from ending up in the ocean?
Put it in a trash can.
That's right.
Trash can.
Really easy thing to do. Throw your trash away properly, because for those of us who live near the coast especially, anything that gets tossed into the street can eventually wash into the storm drains, the rivers, out into the ocean, and even out as far as this particular kelp forest. So we're not immune to pollution, but we can do things to help minimize it. So those are a couple of the threats. Another one that I already mentioned is water temperature changing. Cycles like El Nino come and go, and they're part of the natural pattern of weather down here and climate. But as the climate of the planet changes, that changes the water temperature. It can change the acidity of the oceans even, the pH balance down here, and that can have an effect on things like the shells of animals becoming less robust. It can also cause the kelp to disappear, because kelp thrives in cold, nutrient-rich water. And so just by being mindful consumers, we can help to minimize the changes in the atmosphere and help protect the kelp forest. Now, how do we know if it's a healthy kelp forest or if the kelp forest is in trouble? Evie, does anybody in Ventura have an idea as to what the Park Service and scientists who work for us do to help determine whether we're in a healthy kelp forest or not?
The sunlight and maybe how tall the kelp is.
Yeah, well, that's one of the ways, one of the things that we know helps promote healthy kelp growth. But what we actually do is we don't just come down and decide without specific information as to whether the kelp forest is healthy or not. We have researchers who come down into the kelp forest scuba diving. They're actually out here this week. They'll go out on our research boat, the Sea Ranger, for 5 days at a time, and they go to 33 different spots around the islands and study and monitor and count the different things that are living down here, and they can compare from year to year what's in the kelp forest, and we can see trends about whether species are in decline, whether species are healthy, and whether the overall kelp forest is healthy. So through the research we've done, looking at sites within protected areas, marine reserves like this one, and areas outside of marine reserves like this one, or like this one, we found that in marine reserves, in areas that are protected from fishing, there tends to be an increase in the amount of life and there are larger animals. And as I mentioned earlier, those larger animals are the more prolific breeders that help to produce more of the animals that make up the web of life down here in the kelp forest. And so, I hope you've seen just a few of the animals today, some of the fish we've seen, the crab and the sea urchin, and have gained a little bit of understanding about the balance of life here. And so let's get back to that initial statement I made about why this is so important to us. I think we all understand inherently why it's important to have healthy ecosystems, but kelp, like this strand of it right here next to me, and other marine algae also produce quite a bit of the oxygen in the air that we breathe. And so it's important to have a healthy marine environment, not just for that crab and those sea urchins and the fish, but also for all of us to survive on the planet, not just for today, but for future generations as well. So with that, I want to thank you guys, everybody in Ventura, on Anacapa Island, and on the internet for joining us today and participating in Channel Islands Live. So goodbye from underwater. For those of you on the island, I'll see you on the surface in just a moment.